Hello guys, and welcome back to today's session. So in today's section, we'll continue from where we stopped last time. Today, I'll be showing you guys how to model using reference images, how to make use of the Boolean modifier, and also we'll still touch back on the array modifier from where we stopped in the last class. So everything we'll be doing today will be required to create our final animation. So I'll urge you guys to pay very, very close attention and also try to repeat whatsoever I've done today. So let's start by adding the reference image that will be needed for this our project. So in order to do that, I'll be on my front mode. I hope by now we remember how to stay in the front mode. So let me remove this my human reference so it doesn't distract you guys. So pressing 1 on my keyboard, you can always look at this part here so that you can see any shortcut key that I'm pressing. Let me increase the font size so that you can see it very clear. Let me make like 50. So I press 1 to be, you can see number 1 pad 1 to be on my front mode. So Shift A to add a reference image. So I'll come to image, click on the reference. Then I'll locate where I added the images from my PC. I'll send you guys these images so that you can also use them as your reference image. I got them online. So I add the image. So now it's too big. You can see it's taller than my human reference. Now for you guys, if you don't have a reference, you can just have your default cube as a reference. Now you can see this default cube. The size of this default cube is 2 meter by 2 meter. Now if I go to my tool item, from my item you can see that this cube is 2 meter by 2 meter, which means it is very, very huge. So meaning that this speaker here now is very, very big, and we know that it's not that big. So let's try to resize it to be smaller than what it is now currently. So I think this is fine. But then if at all I'm working on this project, I need to know the exact measurement of the speaker. So meaning that it will require me to even take ruler to measure the speaker. But then that's by the way, that's not what we're here to do today. So just use cube as your reference to see that, okay, if cube is as big as this, then my speaker should be small like this. Yeah. So now the next thing I'll need to do is I'll press 7 on my keyboard to be on my top view. Then Shift A again and add another reference image, the reference image from the top view. So I add this one as well. So I'll scale it again to make it to be smaller, small like what we have here already. But don't worry, we'll still adjust. So now that I have my reference image, I will now start adding my shape. So the next question I'll ask myself is, what object looks closer like what we have here? And if you look at it, you see that it's a cube. Even meanwhile, looking from the top, you can see that this is a cube. So I can just Shift A and do what? Add a cube. Add a cube. Now my cube is very big. I can decide to switch the different views here. Now it's in solid view, solid mode. I can just click here to be in my wireframe mode. So I will just scale it down this way. Now I can position my image now to fit that size. So I select my image, position it to fit in that black rectangle. This rectangle now being my cube. So I'll select my image, arrange it to fit, scale it a little bit, and I think this is okay. Now the next thing also is now to be in my front view and also position the cube that I just added. So I'll position it here and now start scaling it as well. So let's scale it inward, something like this. I think this size should be okay. Oh yeah. Now, instead of scaling my cube, since I've positioned it from the top and it's fitting, then I will just adjust my image as well to fit. So let's push this image this way. scale it up a bit. Just make it to fit on this black rectangle that we can see here, a black square that we can see here. So I select my image, try to fit it on my cube. Yeah, I think this is fine. Now the next thing now is to start scaling my object, my cube, to fit what my reference image, the reference image I have here. So in order to do that, I can now go back to my solid view to see what I've done so far. So you can see, guys, being in my edit mode and making sure I'm in my face selection mode, I'll select this top, then pick my move tool, go back again to my front view and place this guy here. Repeat the same thing for the bottom and place this guy also here. Now I've gotten my box properly placed. You can always stay in the wireframe mode so that you will be sure that everything is all placed properly. Now for these details, there is one little detail. I don't know if you can see it here. We can do that later, or let's just do that now. So in order to add this little detail I have here, I'll be in my edit mode, Ctrl R, and add a loop cut. Okay. Now I'm in my X-ray mode. The difference between the X-ray mode and the wireframe mode is that it can show you the image back, just like the name X-ray. So from my X-ray mode, I'll press Ctrl R to, sorry, I'm not in my edit mode. Being in my edit mode, I'll press Ctrl R to add a loop cut. Then place the loop cut here at this point. Press Ctrl R again, add another loop cut and place it somewhere here. Now, after doing that, then the next thing I'll do is just to add some bevel. But before that bevel, let me add some bevel to the sides. So I'll be on my edge selection mode, select this part, select all the edges. Now let me be in solid mode so that you guys don't get confused what I'm doing. This is just me about adding bevel, and bevel is from the last class if you can remember. So be in my front mode, be in my X-ray mode so that I can see what I'm doing. Then I'll add a bevel. Control B, or no, yeah, let me be in my top view so that you can see what I'm doing from the top. I think it's much more clear from the top. So I'll press Control B to add some bevel. Now you can see the bevel. After getting it towards this range, I will now start scrolling to give it more details. So I think this is fine. Yeah, this is cool. Adjust my image a little bit. Okay, so let's see the beauty of what we've done so far. So you can see I've added a little bevel to my shape. It's beginning to look like the speaker we have there already. It's slowly looking like it already. Now, switching back to my wireframe, you can see I've added this bevel and it's already looking like my speaker. Now let me take some few minutes to explain the, what's it called? Let me explain the Boolean tool before I start applying it to what we have here already in my shape. So, but before then, I can as well choose just to apply this shade smooth to it. So it's looking smooth and beautiful. So the next thing I need to do now is to show you guys how to add the boolean to this shape to give it those holes. Now if you look at our reference image, let me hide the cube for some minutes. If you look at this, you see that we have all these holes in the speaker that is giving it that details. So for these holes, we can choose to either use a circle to create those details, or we can either use a circle to add those details, or we can just use our what's it called? We can use the Boolean tool. So before I go into deep details of how to use the Boolean tool in this project, I'll just show you guys how to make use of the Boolean tool. So in order to make use of the Boolean tool, let's say for instance I add a cube. I'm adding this cube and also a cube and a cylinder. So I added these two shapes, and I want to cut out this cylinder from this cube. Now look at what I will do. So let's assume that this is my cylinder, and I want to cut out this part of this cylinder from this cube. Now what I will do is I'll call this cube the parent and this cylinder will be the child. So if this cube is the parent, I'll first of all select the parent being the cube, and I'll come to this my modifiers, select modifier, click on add modifier, go to generate and pick the Boolean modifier. So if I select the Boolean modifier and making sure my cube is still selected, then I'll click on this part where I'm seeing objects. Click on this eyedropper to select my cylinder. Now once I've selected my cylinder, the Boolean has already been applied. I'm making sure that I'm in difference. The Boolean has been applied, but now you can see the effect of what I have done, except when I go to my cylinder from my eyedropper and hide it. But now the question is, what if I want to adjust the position of this cylinder? I won't know where it is, right? So after adding the Boolean modifier to this cylinder, making sure I've selected my cylinder, I will come to this object here. You can see the object from this panel. If I click on this object, I'll come to viewport display, click on the viewport display, then this place where I'm having display as, I'll click on the textured and choose bound instead. So now that I've selected bounds, you can now start seeing the effect of what I have created. So meaning that I can choose to move around my cylinder, and you can see the effect it's creating on my cube. So this is how we use the Boolean modifier. We use it to cut out shapes from another mesh. And this is exactly what we'll do here right now. So for this part, we'll create like different array of cylinders, then cut it out from our main shape. So but we'll be using this technique of what we've done here so far, what we've done here. Now let's dive deep and do that. So I'll just delete this one if you've understood what I've done here. Now coming back to our shape, now we'll start creating these holes. In order for us to create the hole, if we look, we see that we can achieve this either by using circles or cylinder. Now for me, I'll use cylinder to do that. So I'll shift A, add a cylinder. Now if I add a cylinder, the cylinder is too big, I can just resize it, or let me reduce the detail of the cylinder so that it doesn't crash your PC. Now from 32, I'll just pick 16. Yeah, not giving it much details. Then I can now reduce the size and rotate it along x-axis 90 degrees. Now making sure I'm in my front view, I'll now start placing it. So let me pick one, position it this way, and yeah, get the first circle. increase the size a little bit. I think this is fine. Now, if you remember from our last class, I showed you guys how to make use of the array modifier. So that array modifier, will be needing it here now. So I'll go to my modifier, making sure my cylinder is selected. I'll go to the modifier and click on array modifier from the generate. So if I pick my array modifier, I'll come to under this relative offset, I'll adjust it to make it place in the second hole. So I'll keep adjusting it. 1.6 is not enough. I think 2 is enough. 2 is enough, or I make it to be 1.9. Now, after making it 1.9, I'll now start increasing the counts. I'll increase the counts to 11. Now, you see that this thing is not well positioned. I will still come to my factor and adjust it until I'm able to fit it rightly. So now 2.0 is not okay. I'll call it 1.95. So you can see 1.95 is fitting properly the way I would want it. Now, the next thing I need to do now is add another array modifier, but this time around, the array modifier would be on the Z axis to go up. So I'll click again on the modifier, add modifier, and add another array modifier. But this time around, instead of factor x, I'll be making my factor x to be 0 and use my factor z to be 1. So if I make factor z to be 1, no, it's not factor z, but factor y rather. So you see, factor y is doing the magic. And the reason why this is happening is because I did rotation initially and I didn't apply. But that's a bit, it's a next level. I'll show you that maybe in further classes. For now, if I start explaining that, it might confuse you. So, but just pick y for now. Then let's zero out our z and start adjusting our y to fit at this point. This is the point where I want it to fit. So, or I can even just use this guy and I can finish everything with 1. No need of making it tedious. So let's bring it down. Yeah, let's position it here. Position it in 1.9. Let's make it 9.5 and see what that looks like. 1.95. Now the next thing I need to do is to increase the count down to this point. So I increase the counts down to this one. So you can see I've gotten the first one. Now the next thing I need to do is I would call this guy my holes. Holes 1. I will duplicate this holes 1 to get my hole 2. So I'll shift D to duplicate hole 1 to get hole 2. I'll just right click, select, and duplicate. Where are you? Oh yeah. So let's just use shift D and lock it on in the Z axis. So I think this is fine for now. So the next thing we need to do now is to position our hole 2 to be in this holes here. Making sure it's matching properly. You can look around all. Yeah, we can see we've gotten it. Now the next thing now is to, if you observe, you see that we are having these ones at the top, which is too much. For that, we can just come to our array and reduce the count from 13 to 12. So that's fixed. Now the next one again is the one on the side, which is this one. So we'll come again to this part and reduce it as well. Reduce it as well. So I think now we've gotten it properly the way we want. So look at hole 2. I can just double click to call this guy hole 2. Yeah. Now we've succeeded in adding holes. Adding our holes to our objects. The next thing is to just bring back our cube to make sure we are placing it in the right place, in the right position. Now, selecting my two holes and being in my top view, I'll just drag it out like this. Drag it out like this. Now, if you look at the hole, you still see that it's cutting inside. In order to fix that, I will scale it along y-axis to make sure it's pointing out. So yeah, I've added the details. I've added the holes to the cube. Now the next thing now is to apply the Boolean modifier to these cubes, just using the same technique that we discussed last time. Now, in order to apply the Boolean modifier, remember I said that you have to select your parent. After selecting your parent, then you now select the child. So in this case, I'll select the speaker. I can just directly call this cube to speaker. So if I select the speaker being the mother, I'll go to my add modifier, generate, and go to Boolean. Now, from Boolean, I can now select, pick my eyedropper tool and pick this one and pick it as my, and pick it to add that cut, the first cut. Now, the second thing I need also to do is, to remember the last time we said after adding the Boolean, we can see the beauty of what we've done. So we have to go to Object, Viewport Display, and change it from Texture to Bounds. So we can now start seeing the cuts that we've added. You can see the cuts now. Now I need to add the same cut now to this other, this second cylinder. So in order to do that, I will just come back again and select my cube, go to modifier and add another Boolean modifier. So this time around, I'm selecting the second holes. Now I have added it, but we can see the beauty of what we've done. So we need to select it, go to our object, and change it from texture to bounds. So now you can see we've succeeded in adding the, what is it called? We succeeded in adding the details to the speaker. Let me change my shading from here so that we can see the shadows and see the beauty of what we've done. So you just click on this arrow here, come down to this part where you can see shadow, click on shadow, and also click on cavity so that we can see the beauty of what we've done so far. It's looking fine already. I can also decide to scale this inward a little. Scale. Okay. Let me add some loop cuts. Add another loop cuts just to give details to my shape. Yeah. So that's it. Now the next thing I need to do is, if I'm done and I've confirmed that I like the holes, then I'll just apply the effect on the speaker by just converting it to a mesh. So in order to do that, let me even select everything and keep one side as my archive. It's good sometimes to archive your product while making a product. Each step you've done, just keep it aside and archive it in case if there is any mistake or anything that you've done and you want to fall back to the past plan. So let me just shift D to duplicate this, lock it along my Z axis, shift D to duplicate, lock it along my X axis, and keep it somewhere here. So in case if I encounter any error in what I've done here so far, I can always fall back to this plan. So let me move it to a collection by pressing M on my keyboard, and I'll call it archive. So if I make any mistake, I'll fall back to this archive. Now, for now, let's just hide the archive. We don't need it. So the next thing I'll do now is, if I'm okay with this guy, I'll just select my speaker, right click and go to convert and click on convert to mesh. So once I click on convert to mesh, that means I'm telling Blender that I'm good with what I've done so far. So I can just move it around to see the beauty of what I've done so far. Let me hide these guys, I think. Yeah. Move this guy and call it model. Model, and hide it as well. I don't need this. Now this is my model so far. So guys, I think I need to stop here. I would want to see your progress in this one so far. Now, but before then, let me apply a quick material. Let me apply a quick material on it. In order to apply a material, I'll select the object, click on my material tab, click here, and just call it black. Call it black, then just make this guy black here. Reduce the roughness to somewhere close to 0 point something. Then go to my material tab to see the beauty of what I've done so far. Now the roughness is too much. I think somewhere here is fine. So you can see our product is beginning to have that shape of that speaker. I will stop here for now, guys, and I would want you guys to make this product up to this point. Then after that, we can now proceed to adding other details, setting up our scene, adding light and animation, and then rendering of the final product. I hope you guys are learning. Yeah, so thank you so much for your time, and once again, see you in the next class. Bye-bye.